You know what grills my cheese? Well, him, actually. Or more so, his reception. See, if you've been following this channel for a while, you may have noticed that I open most videos, or at least their main subject portions, with a certain someone. Yep, Batman Forever is one of my most favorite movies, and my favorite character from that movie is Two-Face, the noble district attorney turned split-personality villain. So I always like to work him into my videos one way or another, just to have him in there, but I never actually talked about him. Quite a few people actually had issues with this portrayal of the character, and for the longest time I've been wanting to create a video coming to his defense, and explaining why he was better than a lot of people give him credit for. Now I usually talk about stuff like Transformers on this channel, but never anything really Batman related, but this is a special occasion. Folks, this year marks the 30th anniversary of Batman Forever, and with the recent tragic passing of the film's Batman actor, the great Val Kilmer, I can think of no better time to finally make this video, to both commemorate the film and dedicate this as a tribute in memory of Val Kilmer, by defending a major character from his film in hopes that the film as a whole will be more appreciated. Because I honestly love Batman Forever. I don't believe it deserves the bad reputation it seems to get. There's a lot of good to be found in it among other qualities. Boosted by its strong cast with Val Kilmer as Batman, Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, Jim Carrey as the Riddler, and Chris O'Donnell as Robin. And I hope this video helps shine some positive light on some aspects of this film. So, as the man said, let's start this party with a bang. Let it be known, Two-Face isn't just my favorite Batman villain, he's my favorite DC character as a whole. In a world full of all kinds of superpowered and incredibly skilled characters, ever since I was a kid, I've always been fascinated by the story of a man torn between two personalities. So, of course, I'm always extra scrutinous when it comes to various adaptations of my sacred cow. Now, as a kid, I, of course, heavily gravitated towards Batman Forever since it majorly featured Two-Face. But as I got older, after hearing all kinds of criticisms about the portrayal of Two-Face in the film, I decided to not let nostalgia get in the way and take a good hard look at the character to see if he truly was the awful adaptation so many say he was. And, as you may have figured out by now, I came to the conclusion that this portrayal of Two-Face isn't as terrible as everyone seems to believe he was. Now, am I saying his portrayal was perfect? Not exactly. Now, personally, I'd give him a 10 out of 10 on how much I like him, because, again, as I said, he's my favorite character in the film. But this isn't about that. So, with all my personal bias and subjective takes out of the way for now, I'd have to give him a 7, maybe almost an 8 out of 10 on how good of an adaptation he is for the character of Two-Face. So yeah, I'm not here to say he's perfect, he's just a lot better than people give him credit for. I mean, I have seen some people say that he is the worst live-action Batman villain adaptation. Which, like, oh, no he is not. Oh, no, 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 he is not. Not even close. Fucking Vitruvius Death looking fucking stupid.
You must listen. What I'm about to tell you will change the course of history.
Well everyone, all I ask is that you head into this with an open mind and hear this out, as I make my argument as to why I believe this adaptation of Two-Face is better than commonly perceived. And if you are someone who dislikes this version of Two-Face, and I managed to change your mind on him by the end of this video, by all means, please let me know in the comments. It helps me see how effective this video was and if I did well enough, and I really appreciate that. Alright, let's begin. For starters, I think we should address what is probably the most controversial thing about Two-Face's portrayal in Batman Forever, the one thing that most people tend to criticize about him, and one of the most notable things about this version of the character. He's a little goofy. Most of the time, Two-Face tends to be a no-nonsense, serious and solemn character. But here, he tends to be more of a cackling, crazy character. Not to say he doesn't have any serious moments at all. I mean, that opening monologue he has is amazing, it's serious, and one of my favorite bits in the whole film. But still, why was he portrayed in this crazier than usual manner? Well, like the rest of the film, I believe he was written this way to come across as less dark and serious than he usually might. Because, well, as most of literally everyone knows at this point, the previous film, Batman Returns, got quite a lot of negative feedback from parents and critics who found it to be too dark and intense for children and general audiences. So this third installment, Batman Forever, was written to be less dark and gritty and more approachable for most general audiences. I believe they feared that a solemn character like Two-Face could still come off as being a bit intense, so they wanted to write him to be more of an over-the-top crazy villain with a lot of energy. Now, that sounds like it could be improper for the character of Two-Face, but I think they found something intriguing here with what they ended up doing. See, let's take a look at Harvey Dent in these films. Because yes, as much as some people doubt it, Batman Forever does share continuity with the previous two Batman films. I am aware of the existence of other media that serves to exist in its place, but please let it be known that the '89 Batman film has like a dozen different continuities at this point. The one which we are focusing on here, of course, being the one with Batman Forever. So, with that in mind, we see that Harvey Dent in these films, while not having a ton of screen time, is pretty much just like how you would typically expect the character of Harvey Dent to be. But this leads me into why I find that what they ended up having to do with Two-Face here actually works, and why I find this crazier evil personality to be oddly fitting, is that it poses such a direct opposite contrast to the good personality. Now, of course, Harvey's two personalities are traditionally the opposite of each other, one being good and seeking peace, the other being evil and violent. But here, they take that even further, as his evil personality is even more of an opposite in more ways than it typically is. As usual, Harvey Dent here is very calm, collected, charismatic, and bold. But on the other hand, his evil personality is a wild, loud, cackling hooligan on top of everything else, and even more of the exact opposite. This is why I find that the character still works, as he still has his good and evil personalities that are the exact opposite of each other, just now in more ways than usual. Now, honestly, I still think I prefer Two-Face's evil personality to be more calm, but with what they had to work with here, I think they still found something that works. They understood that Harvey's two personalities had to be opposites, and while it had to be a little different than usual, they still got that. However, I would like to briefly acknowledge a fairly common criticism people have about this wilder, evil personality, that being that he seems too much like the Joker. This criticism also extends to the Riddler in this film too, so we'll include him in this here, because if you haven't noticed, this channel likes Jim Carrey. Now, I get it, Two-Face and the Riddler tend to have some wild laughter here and there, like the Joker is known for, but like, is there anything else that makes them like the Joker outside of that? After all, just because you're more of a campy, cackling villain doesn't automatically make you too much like the Joker. I mean, that's just a fairly common villain archetype. And honestly, when you really stop to compare the way these characters act and conduct themselves, they're quite different from each other. Like, the Joker is a long-term planner. He'll take various actions that all build up to something bigger, and you can never really tell what he's about to do in any given moment. Two-Face, however, isn't like this. He doesn't really have his plans build up to something bigger, rather, he'll plan for a single event, go for it, and if that fails, he'll just start over and come up with something new. He's not as unpredictable either, because with him, you know it's always a 50-50 chance of things going one of two ways, whereas with the Joker, you can't even begin to guess what he's about to do next. And as for the Riddler, he seems to have things planned out, except he actually enjoys leaving the puzzles and making you try to figure out what it is he's up to, hence why he's, you know, the Riddler. But anyway, with that all aside, that takes me to what is probably the next most crucial point. I think we need to establish how Two-Face's two personalities work in Batman Forever, as clarifying this will make it easier to address other complaints and further explain the character. See, across all of his various appearances in media, the way Two-Face's two personalities work isn't always the same, and follow different types of rules from time to time. But let's break down the different types of rules. For example, the first type is that in some media, Two-Face's good and evil personalities are both always present at the same time and are of fairly equal power. meaning he can even talk to himself back and forth. In other instances though, we see a second type, like in Batman the Animated Series, where the evil personality is more powerful than the good personality, and has full control most of the time, with the good personality very rarely getting to come out for very long. And then in other instances, there's a third type, where Two-Face doesn't actually have two personalities, and rather has a good personality that turns evil. However, it would appear that the type of rules that Two-Face follows in Batman Forever would be the second type, where the evil personality is in control for most of the time, with the good personality rarely managing to come through. This is why he acts crazy for most of the film. It's because his evil personality is in control most of the time. And, as I said, these are the same type of personality rules that Two-Face follows in Batman the Animated Series. And as we know, these films and that show began to share some ideas and influence each other. And I believe this was also the case for Two-Face. Not so much with how he conducts himself, of course, one is more serious than the other, but I mean more so with how he operates, as these two share quite a bit in common with how their personalities function and other details of their behaviors. But we'll get into that as we go along here. Now, with that being said, I'm sure some of you are wondering that if this Two-Face's evil personality is in control most of the time, then when do we see his good personality come out again? Do we even see it come out at all? Yes, we actually do. It just seems some people weren't sure or missed when this was. See, in the film, Two-Face refers to himself as we or us most of the time, and some people believe that he does this because it must mean both of his personalities are working together and never truly separate at any time, which wouldn't make sense and is just wrong. However, I do not believe this to be the case, as I think the more simple explanation as to why he refers to himself as we or us is because even though just his evil personality is in control most of the time, he still technically is two people in one body. It's quite apparent in the film that the evil side of Two-Face likes to play up the fact that he has two personalities. Like, for example, in this moment, no, I don't actually believe this was Harvey trying to have a separate drink from his evil personality. I believe this was just the evil personality being kinda crazy again and just wanting to have two drinks for each of his sides, because, again, he is technically two people, so therefore he would need two drinks. Same thing for moments like back at his lair, where he leads with his good side to the good half of his lair. This doesn't seem like his real good personality. It just seems like his evil personality just playing on the fact that he has a good side. There isn't anything really different here, he's acting completely the same as his evil side usually does. I just think that the little moments like these probably could have been written to be a little bit clearer for the audience because obviously quite a few people misinterpreted them. But if these moments weren't really the good personality managing to come out, then again, when do we see it? Well, there are a couple scenes where it's mainly apparent. The first of which being when Clis O'Donnell gets attacked by Two-Face on the Riddler's Island Fortress. One of the blows that Chris O'Donnell lands on Two-Face sends him stumbling back over the edge of the fortress, where he catches himself on the side of the island, trying not to fall to his death. However, this is a moment where we see Harvey Dent's good personality come through. As Chris to the O to the Donnell approaches the cliffside that Two-Face is holding onto, we watch as Two-Face says,
"Finally justice is served! Let us die!"
This is clearly Harvey's good personality finally finding a moment to shine through. He knows that his evil personality has done all kinds of horrible things, and that a definitive way to finally put a stop to all of it would be to just let him fall to his death. Because at least if he dies, the evil personality will of course die with him, finally getting what Harvey believes he deserves for all the terrible things his evil side has done, and allowing justice to be served. But the evil personality quickly returns, as just as the scene cuts back, Two-Face has suddenly changed his tone.
"You're a man after our own heart, son. I'll see you in hell."
Whereas Harvey's good side wanted Christopher of the Donnell to let him die in order to put an end to the evil side's crime spree, the evil side of course doesn't want to die, so he tries to guilt Chris Griffin into saving him, telling him that by letting him die, he'd be just like him. There's a subtle choice of dialogue here though that's pretty clever. Remember how earlier we went over how regardless of the good personality being currently present or not, the evil personality will always refer to himself with plural pronouns such as we or our, because he views himself as technically being two people? Well here, as he's confronting Dawn O'Crissel, he first says, "You're a man after our own heart, son. You're a man after our own heart, son." Which makes sense, seeing how both personalities do share one heart. But right after, the evil personality then suddenly refers to himself with a singular pronoun for once, as he says, "I'll see you in hell." Not we, I. But why would he suddenly change this after referring to himself with plural pronouns the whole film? He literally just used our mere moments ago. Well, it's because here, for once, he's not talking about something shared between both personalities. He's talking about his soul. And the evil personality figures that his evil soul would be going to hell for his horrible actions, while the good personality's soul certainly would not. For once, there is no we here, hence why he refers to himself with a singular pronoun in this instance, because while they share the same body, they do not share the same soul. Now, this begs the question of if the good and evil personalities really are two separate souls, but in any case, it's clear that Two-Face himself here believes they are. But of course, this scene serves as an end to Donald O'Criss's character arc in this film, where he decides to follow Batman's no-killing warning. As despite the protest earlier from the good personality, he still saves Two-Face from falling to his death. To which the evil personality immediately uses as an opportunity to capture him. This leads to a brief moment though that shows us the contrast between both personalities again, as later when Batman faces the Riddler and tells him the conflict is between them, the good personality calmly pipes in just to let Batman and Riddler know he's still there and involved with this, only for the evil personality to whip around and do the same in a much more crazier way.
Release Chase. This is between you and me.
And me. And me.
Which just serves to highlight how different these two personalities act from each other. One collected, who speaks in a soft, calm voice, and the other crazy, who speaks in a loud, rougher voice. Later though, there is yet another moment where the good personality gets to come through again, as right after the Riddler is defeated, and Batman has just saved Chase and Crispy Chris, Two-Face suddenly returns to catch them off guard, cornering them at the top of a large shaft, and prepares to kill them. However, Batman quickly reminds him not to forget to flip his coin about whether to kill them or not. Which, like, I understand that some people have a problem with Two-Face seemingly forgetting his own rules here and needing to be reminded to use his coin, but honestly, this isn't the first time this has happened in Batman media, and it's not the last time either. Not saying that a problem isn't a problem because it happens in other things, but it doesn't bother me too much here, because I've come to accept that this is just a weird thing that happens from time to time with this character. Plus, you know, technically speaking, you could say that he didn't think he had to flip the coin for this because he already did earlier. Like when he broke into Bruce Wayne's mansion earlier in the film after he and the Riddler learned Batman's true identity. He flipped the coin for Bruce, and landed tailside up, of course meaning he gets to kill him, but before he did, Riddler quickly interrupted him and went, "Yeah, but imagine how much cooler it would be if we killed him later." So you could say that he's been meaning to get around to killing Bruce this whole time and is following up on that coin toss right now, but Batman's comments make him believe with the new circumstances he should just redo it anyway. But this is a moment where we see the good Harvey personality shine through again, as after Batman makes that comment about the coin, Two-Face quickly mellows out, very clearly switching to that calm and collected good personality, where he thanks Bruce for raising that point, probably thankful that there's now a chance that Bruce will get to live, and tells Bruce that he's always been a good friend to him, which is a comment we'd never get out of the evil personality. Anyway, with that, I hope I've managed to explain to you well enough how Two-Face's personalities work in this film, how they contrast from each other, how we know when we see the good personality come out when the evil one is in control the most, and why this still works in its own way as an adaptation of the character. But in addition to his personalities, there are some other rules and traits that some people don't believe this Two-Face adaptation follows, so let's go through the main ones. One comes from near the beginning of the movie, where Two-Face has a guard hostage, and he flips a coin to decide if he lets the guard live or not. The coin lands head side up, so he doesn't kill the guard, only to then proceed to have the guard taken directly into a deadly acid trap in order to act as bait to lure Batman into the trap. Now, people take issue with this because if the coin flip said that the guard would get to live, then why would Two-Face immediately put him into a trap that would kill him anyway, along with Batman? But there is actually an explanation to this, and it's pretty much that it had already been decided before Two-Face even got here that this guard would die one way or another. It was just a matter of when and how. See, later in the movie, we're shown that Two-Face uses his coin to decide if he's going to go through with a crime or not before he leaves to go do it. Which, yeah, that makes sense. It'd be weird if you took all your men and resources, created a whole scene, and then only find out if you were going to actually go through with a crime or not once you were already there at the spot and ready to go. It makes far more sense for him to do what he's shown to do here, where he flips his coin to decide if he's going to go through with a crime before he even prepares and leaves to go do it. So, knowing that he does this, it means we can look back on this scene here and realize that Two-Face had clearly already decided he would go through with this crime before he even got here. And since his plan for this heist crime heavily involves using a guard as bait, presumably having the guard end up getting killed alongside Batman, it means that Two-Face already did the coin flip to decide if he would go through with this plan or not, and if this guard would live or not, before he even got here, or else he wouldn't even be here at all, obviously. So with the knowledge that it was clearly already decided that this guard would die, this coin flip we see him do here was just for him to decide how this guard would be killed. If it was tails, he probably would have shot the guard right there on the spot, but since it was heads, it means the guard would then be used as live bait, only to presumably be killed later by the acid with Batman. Which, like, yeah, that technically doesn't break any of his rules, it's just a dick thing to do, but I guess that's fitting. And no, whether or not this guard was alive or dead wouldn't affect him being able to be used as bait for Batman, because Batman had no idea what the status of this guard was until he got up there and lured into the trap anyway. I am aware that shortly after this, Two-Face shoots one of his men without flipping his coin, but that was clearly unintentional. Two-Face was frantically trying to shoot Batman, and he caught this guy in the crossfire. Moving on from that, though, we later see Two-Face's lair. I've seen this get criticized for its layout of having a good side and an evil side, as people say that this means his lair breaks as soon as he turns around. But like, no? It's not like he stands with one foot in each side of his lair. Of course he's got to turn around and walk into either side to even be able to use what's there. He knows that. And it's not like Two-Face's good and evil sides can each only use what is on their respective sides of the lair and not touch whatever's on the other's side. Something like this is never shown in the film. The way that this lair actually works is far less restricting, and it's simply that there are two sets of mostly the same basic things, just with different good and evil styles. The good style things are kept on the good side, while the evil style things are kept on the evil side, and Two-Face can just go into either side to use their stuff based on whatever is decided on in the moment. And to once again make another comparison to Batman the Animated Series, we see that Two-Face's lair there has a very similar layout of being divided into good and evil sides. But it's not like he only stands with each foot in either side there, and of course he'd have to turn around as well. But going on ahead now, another common criticism I've heard for Two-Face comes from that scene I mentioned earlier where he and the Riddler break into Wayne Manor, where many people have accused Two-Face of seemingly flipping his coin until he gets the results that he wants here, which would be catastrophically out of character if this was true. However, no, that is not what happens here. I guess a good amount of people just misunderstood the scene, so I'll explain it. I can understand why to some people that it may look like Two-Face here is flipping his coin until he gets the result he wants, but what he's actually doing is flipping his coin for each person currently present in the mansion to see if he kills them or not. But how do we know this? Well, he flips his coin here 3 times, and there are 3 people currently in the mansion: Alfred, Chase, and Bruce. The first coin flip, which lands good side up, would have to be for Alfred. We don't see him because he's not in the room, as he's currently unconscious by the front door, but we still know it had to be for him since the next 2 coin flips are very explicitly shown to be for Chase and Bruce. With the second coin flip, the camera shows us Two-Face's men chasing after Bruce and Chase, before we are then explicitly shown a close-up shot that focuses just on Chase as she punches one of them, immediately cutting to Two-Face looking at her and reacting to this before flipping his coin, which lands good side up again. I feel like I really shouldn't have to spell this out, but yeah, this is the film showing us that Two-Face had his attention on Chase as the subject for his second coin toss. People tend to point out how Two-Face acts disappointed at the results of these coin flips so far, but why wouldn't he? The evil personality is in control. Of course he's going to be disappointed that the coin lands head side up. Again, we see something similar happen in Batman the Animated Series.
Personally, I suggested a quick slug between the eyes, but I lost the coin toss.
The evil personality expresses disappointment at the result of the coin toss, which makes sense because he's evil, but what's important is that despite his disappointment, he still accepts and follows the results of the coin toss anyway, just like what he does in this film. And finally, the third and final coin flip is very clearly for Bruce, as the coin lands bad side up this time, and it's apparent that Two-Face's attention has moved from Chase to Bruce, as when he fires a shot at them, it's clearly directed at Bruce and not Chase, as it comes so close to Bruce that it grazes his head. So I hope that clears this all up. One final thing of note though that I'd like to call attention to is that scene I briefly talked about before, that being Two-Face's final scene in the film, which ends with his apparent death, as many claim that Batman literally just killed Two-Face here. This is more of a defense of Batman, I guess, but it heavily involves Two-Face, so I'm gonna include it in here anyway. So, first of all, I just want to acknowledge the fact that this Batman has killed people before in previous films. Yeah, that guy's dead. But here in this film, no, Batman did not kill Two-Face. When Two-Face goes to flip his coin to see if he'd shoot Batman, Chase, and Crizzle O'Drizzle, Batman quickly whips out a handful of coins and tosses them all into the air at the same time so that Two-Face loses track of which coin was his. But as Two-Face frantically tries to figure out which coin was his and catch the correct one, he loses his footing and falls down the shaft towards his apparent death. I do not believe for a second that Batman intentionally tried to make Two-Face fall here. All Batman wanted was for Two-Face to just lose his coin, as without it, he can't make up his mind, and there would be no chance that he'd try to shoot them. The fact that he fell was just the unintentional result of Two-Face desperately trying to catch whatever coin could be his. Director Joel Schumacher even confirmed this to be true in his director's commentary for the film.
So, here was the dilemma. I did not want to have Batman kill the villains. First of all, I didn't want him to actually murder, because I thought that Batman should be above that. And so this is a way, so he kind of foils him with his own coins.
But also, not only is this what I was talking about when I said Batman did not kill Two-Face, but I also literally meant Batman did not kill Two-Face, because Two-Face didn't actually die here. Yeah, apparently, Two-Face survived this? Because also in that director's commentary, director Joel Schumacher says that his intention with this scene, despite what it looks like, was to keep it ambiguous if Two-Face was really dead, because at the time, he didn't know if these films were going to continue to get sequels, and he wanted to keep the possibility of Two-Face returning open.
Also, I did not know we did not know the film was going to be successful. We didn't know there were going to be other sequels. I wanted to keep the possibility that villains could come back if Warner Brothers needed them. I did not expect to be doing another Batman movie myself at the time. But I left Harvey. You don't really know if Harvey's dead or not.
And what confirms that Two-Face is actually alive is that in the next film, Batman and Robin, we can see the suit that he was wearing there hanging up in Arkham Asylum next to the Riddler's costume, which apparently was put here to show us that Two-Face was alive and being held prisoner here again. Because why would they take the suit off a dead guy, bring it to Arkham Asylum, and hang it up along with the costumes of living prisoners unless he wasn't actually dead? So, yeah, Two-Face didn't die. If you think that this is absolutely absurd considering what we're shown, don't hold it against the Batman Forever, because again, Batman and Robin is the film that says Two-Face survived this. Well, I believe I've covered most of the most common criticisms around that I've seen for Two-Face in Batman Forever, so I'd like to move on from those into things I personally find to be positives for this character, and explain why I have these opinions. Starting right off with one of my favorite aspects of this Two-Face, his design. We have seen Two-Face in live action 3 times now, and this is still my favorite live action look that he's ever had. Not saying the others are bad, of course, especially not The Dark Knight. It's just that I always prefer Two-Face to look like a good and evil being fused together, as opposed to just the burned look. And this goes for all Batman media, not just the movies. A lot of Two-Face designs, including The Dark Knight, give Harvey's evil side this look where all his hair on that side is gone, and that half of the suit is usually either burned or damaged. To me, this makes Harvey look more like a zombie or something, rather than a good and evil being fused into one body. Although I still tend to like designs like this. However, I prefer when Two-Face designs give Harvey's evil side aspects such as crazy hair or a different colored half of his suit, because it makes Two-Face look more like he's half normal guy, half evil creature guy, which I think better fits his character of being a good guy and an evil guy trapped in the same body. Which is exactly what Batman Forever does with its Two-Face design, and I wish more modern Two-Face designs would do it too. Like, why are we afraid to give the evil side of his face a fun, strange color like purple or green? Or give him some wild hair? Or give his suit a half-and-half color scheme? What I like about Two-Face's design in Batman Forever is that it does all these things, and because of that, it is a very fun design. There's been a trend for a while now in superhero movies of villain designs just being boring or lame. Like, why was the Scarecrow just a guy in a suit? Why did the Joker look like the personification of cringe angst? Why was MODOK just verbatim Corey Stoll's squished head? Why did the leader look like rotten lettuce wearing a casual outfit? I could keep going and going and going. Looking back on Two-Face in Batman Forever, it's so refreshing to see a villain design be so full of color and personality. I actually even prefer this half-black, half-pink suit look to the more common half-black, half-white suit look, just because both white and black are both far more common suit colors than pink is in real life. So seeing this pinkish red is just more fun, and they didn't stop at just the suit's color. He's got some bright yellows underneath, and the whole suit is covered in animal-looking stripes and spots, which fits his evil side's wild personality well as just being really creative. Plus, this isn't even his only look in the movie, that's just his main suit. Across the film, he's also seen in a suit that's half gray, with the other half being a darker metallic purple, covered in all kinds of small accessories like decals and small chains. He has another suit that's half black, with the other half being covered in abstract, almost painted, bright-looking purple and red colors. At one point, he's even seen in a ringmaster costume, with one half looking normal of course, but the other half was a really neat mix of various shades of green colors, decals, and all kinds of other imaginative details like bullets and chains making up different accessories to the costume. They once again went all out with the creativity here for this costume, even though it's only used for one scene. I think all of these Two-Face costumes are great. All of his costumes in this film have some imagination, creativity, and fun put into them that we don't get to see in a lot of superhero movies anymore. And it just makes me appreciate and love the character and the work that went into him even more. But another aspect of his character that I can appreciate is that he actually gets to have a real long-time rivalry with Batman in this film. So much so that I'd argue that Batman's arch-enemy in this timeline is Two-Face. See, while I think the other villains in this timeline so far were great and impactful, they didn't stay around nearly as long as Two-Face did. The Joker only faced off against Batman for only a couple weeks, and then died. The Penguin also faced off against Batman for a couple weeks, and then died. But with Two-Face, we find out that he's already been a villain for over 2 years by the time Batman Forever even starts. Meaning Harvey must have become Two-Face either right around when Batman Returns took place, or maybe even right after the first Batman film, since that's when we last saw him and he isn't mentioned at all in Batman Returns. Either way, Two-Face has been around and clashing with Batman for a while now, way more than the Joker or the Penguin ever got to. He's even one of the longest-lasting Batman rivals in live-action Batman movie history. Like in later Batman films, villains don't tend to stay around for long, or hardly interact with Batman at all. I mean, even in The Dark Knight, we have another Two-Face, and he spends a lot of his time as Harvey Dent being a really compelling character. But as Two-Face the villain, instead of having a complex, multi-year history with Batman, he faces Batman one time for a couple minutes, and then he's dead forever. I understand that his death plays a big role in the story of these films, but still, I liked Two-Face here, and I really wish he got to stay around. Especially because Two-Face should be a character who has a long-lasting history with Batman. But this is just a broader problem with a lot of superhero movies, where the long-spanning, consistent, multi-year rivalries that heroes and their villains should have are rarely fully established. We already talked about some examples, but there's many more. Like, as much as I love Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, all of the villains, except for Sandman, die in the same movie they're introduced in. Captain America only faces Red Skull in one film, and then they never meet again. Iron Man never even met his archenemy, and they're both dead. Hulk, by all accounts, was killed off screen. He's just Bruce now. Which means Hulk will never meet his archenemy, the Leader, he only faced Abomination once, and he'll never meet Ross as Red Hulk. And the list goes on and on and on. Don't misunderstand this as me saying that these villains have to be in every movie, because they don't. It's just that when you barely use them, or kill them off in the same film they're introduced in, it hurts the overall world building, because now we know it's impossible for the hero to theoretically ever face that villain again at any point in that universe's future, and establish the long-running conflicts that they should have. It just makes me appreciate Two-Face in Batman Forever more, because Batman and Two-Face are established to already have a couple years worth of history right at the start of the film. So we have some long-running history between the hero and the villain right from the start, and one that isn't even over, since Batman and Robin shows us Two-Face indeed lived, which means he could theoretically face Batman again in that universe someday. Batman Forever gives Two-Face a lot of the presence and importance that this character should have in a Batman story. From his main antagonist role, his history with Bruce, being the cause of Chris of the Donnell's origin. I mean, they even gave him his own great villain music theme. And a final thing of note that I personally loved about this Two-Face was his actor. I think Tommy Lee Jones was such a great casting choice for Two-Face. His acting in the film, though, it's, yeah, really something else. He's so dynamic in this role that I've actually seen some people discuss whether his acting in this film was good or bad. In either case, Tommy Lee Jones is giving it 110% in this role when he absolutely did not have to. And I loved every second of it. He's just so full of energy and entertaining to watch. Alright folks, I believe that's gonna do it for this one. I'm sure I could keep going, but I think I've at least covered most of the major points about Two-Face from Batman Forever, and why I believe that he's better than most people give him credit for. If I've managed to change your mind, even a little bit, and shine a new light on this Two-Face for you, again, please let me know in the comments, but if not, then I hope you'll at least now be able to understand why I, and others, liked Two-Face from Batman Forever. Again, talking about Batman media is quite different from what I usually discuss here on this channel, but in order to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Batman Forever, I wanted to take this as an opportunity to finally discuss one of my favorite characters who has a major part in that film, and dedicate this as a tribute to the late Val Kilmer, in hopes that people will look back more positively on one of his biggest films. So, as always, I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and so long for now.
All those heroics for nothing.